Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. This week a little tutorial on how to use X's and O's, if you own it, to display information you might want on your screen on a custom gauge. I figure we're stuck here between Flight Sim 2020 and 2024, so I might as well cover something that will apply to both of them. In my case, I had this need because I've been having trouble with the mode knob on my Honeycomb Bravo. The problem is it's really hard to see which of the 5 modes you have the selector set for. So I wanted to create a really simple on-screen display that would just tell me and save me fumbling around on the knob trying to figure out where it's at or read the tiny little text on the device with my old man eyes. X's and O's can do very nice looking gauges if you're ready to put in the time to make all your own graphics for that. But it can also be used to give you simple text information either over the top of your simulator or on your other screen if you have one. So let me show you what I've done, and after watching this you should be able to do the same yourself or even make other displays, more complex things to your liking. Keep in mind this is just a really simple one. I'd never done it before, so I was just kind of jumping in here to see what I could do. Got a great result and I wanted to show you how I did it. Okay, so if you go into the flight simulator options and then you go into your controls options and you select your Bravo throttle quadrant like I've done here, you get this little image down here in the corner. And this shows you every button number on the device. And if you look at the knob here, you see that it's assigned to, well, it says here 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21, but I don't know if mine's weird or something. Mine actually starts from 16 and goes to 20 here. But either way, this gets you in the idea of what you're looking for. You can verify those numbers in X's and O's when you go to add your button. So once you're in here, if you push plus to the button side to add a button, you'll get this dialog, and right here is your button or key. So if I take my my Bravo and I move it, you see button 17 there, I've actually got it on the second position. If I move it back down, it goes to 16. So that's the indicated airspeed position on the Bravo. And we have that, and it goes 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20 on mine, which is a little different from the diagram. I don't know why. The first thing I tried doing was using X's and O's scripting controls, and in here you have watch simulator events or watch simulator variables. I was hoping that when I moved the knob on the Bravo that I would be able to see something happen either in events or variables. And in some positions I can see it do that, in other ones I can't. So it was inconsistent, and that wasn't going to work for what I needed to do. So I eventually came up with the idea that what I could do is use a custom variable. For each position on the knob, I could have it increment by 1, and so I would have values 1 through 5. So to do this, the first thing you need to do is set up that variable, and that can be found in scripting. And if you come on down to input custom variables manually, and you click on that, and that'll bring you in here. Now, I did a little bit of research to see which type of variable I should use. I know A variables are aircraft variables, L is local variables, which some people use for various things, but according to the Microsoft documentation, Z is the one that, as a user just putting something in here for your own purposes, you should use. And the reason why is that Z variables don't turn up in add-ons and things. So this will keep you from ever getting into conflict with some other variable that could turn up in some add-on you've got. So we've got a Z variable, and in my case, I decided I would call that Bravo mode position. It's going to be a number, so I'm leaving number in the field here. And for the description, I'm just going to put the same thing. Bravo mode position. Okay, having done that, custom is fine for the group. You click save, and you can close that. Now, if you go into scripting and you go to watch variables, this is kind of a funny behavior I want to show you so that it might save you some of the headaches that I had. If you go in here and you do a search for your new field, you have to go under user variables and you see your custom group here, and there's our new field. If I tell it I want to use this, it doesn't actually filter it properly. So watch what happens. I'm going to click that, it puts it down here, and it puts it in as just Bravo mode position, but that's not really what it is, and so that'll never show a value. So when you're filtering for it, you need to have that Z on the front of it. What's going on here? And there we go. And that will should find the variable. we'll verify that in a minute. So we'll add that to our watch list, and we have that. I'm going to just put that out of the way here for a minute. Now, the next thing to do is we want to add controls for the buttons to do what we want them to do, right? And this is the part where you have to do a little bit of RPN script. And RPN is probably the most mind-numbing syntax you're ever going to have to learn, but it's really common in custom gauges and things for all the flight simulators, not just Microsoft. It's just very common. And once you kind of get your head wrapped around how it works, it's really not that hard. And especially for simple tasks like this, it's really not that bad. But it is going to twist your brain if you've never seen this stuff before. So the first thing I needed to do was figure out a way to get my number into my variable. So I know that I want to have button press. So we want to set 16 is going to be our first one. So let me get the Bravo back to 16. Okay, so now I have button 16. And the way you do this, if you have a newer version of Axis and O's, you get these two options here. You can either select an input from a list like that, which doesn't work in this case, or you can go manual. And if you go manual, what you can do is tell it, I want to use an RPN script to make a decision here or to do a thing. And what I did, I just copy pasted this so I'd get it right. Whoops, got it wrong anyway. So this is the command. And what this is saying is, we want to take one and we want to push it into this variable. That's kind of, as best as I can figure, that's what the greater than symbol does in this case. This has to be in parentheses. You add the greater than, that means push my number in there, and that will put a 1 in that position. So that's all you have to do. And we need to create one of these for each of the 5 positions on the Bravo. So let's add that. And let's go ahead and do one more real quick. And then I'll do the rest off camera, but I want to show you something. So we're going to do 17 now. So I want to move the mode knob to 17, and I see 17 pop up here. And then we're going to select, and we're going to go RPN again. And this time we're going to put a 2 and our variable name. And we'll save that or add that. So now I have the 2 of them. Now watch. Down here, you can see it's got 2 because it's on position 17, which you just saw. If I turn it back to 16, this value becomes 1 again. And if I push it back up to 17, it becomes 2. So this is the start of what we're doing. Let me move in the rest of these real quick, and I'll show you the full thing, and then we'll move on to the gauge part. All right, so I've now added my 5 different positions. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 over here on the list. You can see here it's currently picking up that I've got it in position 1, the bottommost one on the knob. And as I roll through them, you'll see it will increment the variable here. So we have 2, 3, 4, and 5. So now we have a way to move this input into a variable. One of the things you may not be aware of if you haven't used AAO before is that you can be doing things in AAO and not have it directly impact the simulator. For instance, all of these autopilot commands that I have in the Bravo, I'm just using the default Bravo profile in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Microsoft Flight Simulator is still going to do everything that it would normally do. What's going on here, though, is we've just kind of added a layer where we're going to take this value and move it into this field, and both things happen. So when that button gets pushed, in effect, when you turn the knob, AAO moves a value to its variable, and Microsoft does its thing. So the two can work together. The next thing you need to do is set up some sort of a background image for your gauge. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. On mine, I just went into Photoshop and I made a little gray rectangle. I figured that's as boring as I am. Anyways, it's just to kind of set in this case, we just want to set the text away from the view in Microsoft Flight Simulator. I think you could probably use a transparent PNG and just have the text be, overlaid right on the sim with no background. I didn't want to do that, though, because you don't always know if you're flying against different colors, whether or not your text is going to be visible. So having a little box kind of makes it nicer. And if you wanted to, you could decorate it up and make it look like an actual aircraft gauge, or put the little segmented, LCD type font on there, or whatever you want to do. But I wasn't getting into that for mine. So anyways, it does need to be a PNG file. And you want to size it such that, it's going to be a size that's helpful to you on the screen. So what you're going to see with mine is it's fairly large. And that's because I'm using a high DPI monitor. You'll just need to get Flight Sim up on your screen, figure out how big you want that thing to be. Go into whatever your favorite editor is, Photoshop or GIMP or whatever you use, and make your little gauge, however far you want to go with it. And worth mentioning here that, you know, gauges in AAO can be as complex as you want. If you look through the ones that they give you, it gives you all kinds of nice ones, you know, altimeters with moving needles and everything. You could do that yourself if you're so inclined, but that's not what we're up to today. Once you've edited up your background image, you want to save it to this path: Documents, Lorby, X's and O's files, User Gauges, and you can just drop it right in there. X's and O's is going to move it into this 1024 folder once you're done working on it, but initially you can just go right here. Once you have all that done, you're going to go into Gauges, Desktop FIPs, which will pull up this screen. And if you've never used any of the layouts before, it's going to be blank. You're going to click on the editor here, which brings up this screen. And this is where we're going to design the actual little gauge. You have to go into File and do New. And then you're going to load your background from that Documents, Lorby, X's and O's files, User Gauges. So here's my dull gray box. You can see it's in there, and now we have the beginning of our gauge. You have to name it. You can't save it until you name it. So I'm just going to call this Bravo Mode. And then click Create. So now we have the background for our gauge. The next thing to do is we want to get that text working in here. So you go Add Gauge Text, and that pulls up this window. Now, we're going to need to create 5 different texts. The order they go in on the Bravo. Sorry, I have to get over here to see it. It's airspeed, then course, then heading, then vertical speed, then altitude. That's from bottom to top. So we need one that's going to be airspeed. This will be our number 1 value from before. That's button 16. You can tell it what size you want your font to be on screen. I already know that for the case of mine, 40 ended up working. These little boxes can be kind of fidgety in AAO. You just double click them, and sometimes it doesn't show the cursor, and if you click a third time, it'll appear. You can set your color here. I wanted mine to be a green colored text, and the text will appear down here in your color, so you can get a look at what it's going to look like. So I know I want 00 for my red. I don't need any red, and I don't remember what hex for 128 is, so I'm just going to plug it in over here. And that should give us a kind of a teal color once it's all set here. And it didn't take my zeros. Yeah, so kind of a mint green. That'll be fine. We want it 40, blah, blah, blah. So here's where the real magic happens, though. This visible field. So you want to click it. You need to put another little RPN script in here. And this one is a pretty easy one. It's just comparing, it's just saying, is this equal to this? And the way that looks is like that. So what we're saying here is, does my variable equal 1? And the weird thing about RPN is that the equal goes on the end. And anybody who, if you're a coder, you know why there's 2 equals here. If you're not a coder, double equals means you're actually comparing the two. A single equal is a different purpose. So anyhow, this is all you need. So you get your title. Select your font size, pick your color, and I'm going to copy that because we're going to want that for all of our gauges. And we know we want this field here. And this is going to increment each time. So for the next one, when we do course, sorry, every time I have to look and the text is tiny. Next one will be course, that'll be value 2. So for this one, we have 1 here. In the next one, we're going to put a 2. And write on up the numbers just like we did when we created the buttons. So I'm going to apply this and close. And what should happen now, if I move my knob, there it is, airspeed. And if I move it away from the airspeed position, airspeed disappears. You can see it's out of position, and that's what you can do with these here. 60? Well, that's close enough for what we're doing. And then this one's your vertical control. And I think I decided 30 was the magic number there. And so now you get it centered in your box. And these numbers will be pretty similar for all your other values. You'll need to move them around because your shorter words, you know, they may not line up the same. But this, the second value, the vertical value, once you find it, works for all of your text. So we've got that guy, and we can just, okay, so once we have it, we can select it to make it green like that. And then the double pluses down here duplicates it. So now we've got our next one, and then we can double click to open it. We're going to set our position to 2. And up here, we're going to put course. These values were all copied in, so they're basically what I want. So I can go ahead and click apply, close. Now I have airspeed and course. Course will probably not be positioned where I want, but we're on airspeed now. And when I turn the knob, it says course. Actually, that's pretty nicely aligned. We'll just leave that. So you want to go ahead, and we're going to do this for each of the 5. I have noticed that this screen will sometimes go crazy and start showing all of your text at the same time, just overlaid. If that happens, just go under File and Save, and then come back in, and it'll be fine, and you can continue your edits. So I'm going to go ahead and set up the other ones off camera here, and then I will show you how the gauge works. Okay, so now I've got all of these set. You can see all the values here down the side. They've all been positioned for their various sizes, so they look clean. And the last thing you need to do before you leave this screen is save it. So what you have to do is put your name of your gauge here, if it's not already there, and then go under here and save. Oh, hey, look, it's doing that thing where they're all jumbled up like I told you it might. So now you've seen it. So when that happens, you can just close the window. In my case, I had already saved it. You'd want to save first. And if I come back into the editor and load, it'll look good again. And you can see as I flip through my switches, it all does what you would expect. So that's great. And then last, we just need to add the gauge to a layout. So we can either just go plus here, and in this case, it's the only, I have that gauge comes to the top. These are all the default Lorby ones down here, but mine's Bravo mode. It goes right there, and you can see it just popped right up on the screen. This you can just drag around anywhere you want it. So whatever. If we go back to the main flight sim window here and get all this other crud out of the way. Okay, and with all that other stuff off screen, you can see I've got my little gauge here. I can put it wherever I want. You could, if you want to, you can make it match the dash on your airplanes, whatever you care to do. And the great thing about that is, in my case, I'm going to have it probably down in the corner, actually where I am on your screen, so that won't show up, but we'll put it over here for now. I'll probably have it something like that. So when I'm flying, except it'll be on the other side because there's always a screen there. If I reach over, if I'm in VR and I don't know what's going on, or if I just look over and I don't want to try and read the tiny little gauge, I can just turn this and I can see right down there exactly what's going on with my Bravo. So it probably stands to reason that you can put any kind of information you want in that box. You can move variables from the flight sim into it if you wanted to. You can do whatever you want. Like I said, you could also create custom gauges of any kind, but that's not really the purpose. The purpose today was to solve this little problem with the Bravo. If you have the same problem with the Bravo, hopefully that'll help you fix it. Of course, you have to have X's and O's, or I assume that SPAD Next probably has a similar capability, although I never used it, so I don't know. I want to give a big shout out to all the recent subscribers. You pushed me over 500 for the channel, which is a number I wasn't sure we were ever going to see. I'm really, really excited to see that we're getting that kind of traction. I'm glad you guys are enjoying the content, and I hope to continue to provide more. All right, so I hope that one's helped you out, and if so, I hope you'll consider dropping a like on it, and if you've been enjoying my other content, I hope that you'll consider subscribing. YouTube only knows if I'm doing a good job when you guys tell them, so I really appreciate when you do. That's going to do it for this one. We'll catch you in the next one, and take care.